Hello everyone. So today we are beginning our IELTS A+ Mastery program from Edu-mentor. So this is a comprehensive series of videos from our end to assist you in your IELTS preparation to achieve that A+ band with just study at home approaches by going through our videos and the comprehensive tips and tricks that we are going to provide you, and the elaborate grammar skills program and the various worksheets that we're going to go through in order to show you in real time how to construct that sentence that can get you the A+, how to speak in a manner that can get you an A+, right? So we're going to go through the series of videos, and we want you to have the dedication to commit yourself to going through all the exercises and the assignments that we're going to provide you. So let's get started without delay. Now, for anyone who's also, this is just like a reminder, for anyone who's also looking for an additional push apart from the excellent these comprehensive course that we are providing here, we do have online batches going on every month, and we have weekly batches, we have weekend batches as well. So anyone who's trying to get that additional support, we're available for them. So they can simply just go on to the link down below in the description box, and they can go on to our page and give us the details, the contact details, so that our team can get in touch with them and will be able to help you additionally. So anyhow, we would move on today with the introduction of IELTS. So we would cover what the test is like. So we'd cover the IELTS academic, to be precise. Now, what is IELTS? That's the very first question, right? What is it as such? What's the purpose and the importance of the test? We keep on hearing about IELTS. We keep on hearing about some other equivalent tests as well. So we'll be talking about all of these things from the study abroad perspective as well as from the test preparation perspective. So as you can see, we are talking about today the very basics of IELTS. We're going to be introducing IELTS, the test. We're going to be talking about the sections. We're going to be talking about the format. We would also cover the test score conversion as such. So all the foundational knowledge that you absolutely require before you commence your preparation. In order to have an efficient preparation, you absolutely require a study plan. Edu-mentor provides you with a comprehensive study plan approach as well. Now, before that, of course, we need to know exactly what we're getting into. So let us get on with that. Now, first of all, when it comes to the exam, IELTS, right? That's the name. And that's an acronym. An acronym is basically like when you just form a new word by taking from just like the first letters of a few words. And this usually just stands for International English Language Testing Service. That's the name. Now, so the test is a proficiency test. And the proficiency test is for non-native students who have the aspiration to study abroad at universities and educational institutions in places like Canada, in places in Europe, especially UK, Australia, New Zealand, so that they can, the universities and these institutions and the admissions tutors can measure your proficiency of the language. That is going to be instrumental for your academic experience, and they want to know, can you academically function in that language? So that's why we're talking about IELTS academic. So that is this test is really essential for you, because in terms of the test score, the better score you have, it really gives you all kinds of opportunities. It opens the gates for various scholarships, tuition cuts, and various offers that the universities would be glad to offer to a student whom they would deem as perfect fit for their program, or a meritorious student whom they would be really excited to offer these like opportunities. Now, so we are talking about this proficiency test, which like we have a few modules, there are a few categorizations in the test. So as we can see, these 4 modules that we have, sort of like, and the 4 sections that you can see: the listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking. The 4 sections, which are the same, by the way, like the similar sections with minor differences we have in the 2 modules, namely academic module and the general module. So as we have been focusing on the academic module, saying that yes, the universities and the institutions want to measure your language proficiency in English to see if you can function in that language in an academic like background. Can you understand, comprehend speech, academic speech like lectures, presentations, instructions? Can you write in an academic manner? Can you speak in a formal, semi-formal, or informal manner as well, right? So they really want to test various aspects of your language proficiency, which would measure up to what would be required for academic excellence. So the general, on the other hand, would be something strictly related to immigration prospects. So that's not really something we are dealing with here right now. We are mostly concerned about the academic one. And as you can see, the academic IELTS is also taken by the majority of the students. And this is like the stat you get. Overall in the world, you have like 220,000, that's like the official statistics, students taking this test overall. And out of that, more than 80%, as you can see, they go for academic, for the reason that it's like in games, for example. So we have sometimes these pro levels and we have these beginner level or amateur levels. So if someone like goes through the whole process and like aces the pro level, they are experts then, and they have aced the beginner level as well. So it's a sort of a comparison, you can say, an analogy that we can draw when we discuss the difference between academic and general, because the general IELTS happens to be easier, even though it has these 4 sections and these 4 aspects of evaluation. There are specific differences, and specifically it deals with the difficulty level. The standard of evaluation happens to be easier for general. So if for your terms and purposes you're fine with just general, and for your purpose it meets your demand, and it meets your purpose basically, then that's absolutely, you go for the general only. But majority of the time we would require IELTS academic in order to ace that particular, let's say, a certain job or a role, or maybe to get into a program. So nonetheless, we would, here in our videos, we would be talking about IELTS academic, because we are concerned with your study abroad aspirations, and Edu-mentor guides students, has guided various students, thousands of students already, in their aspirations to go abroad. So we are really strictly associated with the academic program. Now, you have probably heard about the UKVI as well. So that's simply just speaking UK visa and immigration. So it also, by the way, has the 2 modules. It follows the academic and the general. But there's a slight difference, for example, in the way it is conducted. So UKVI is taken at specific centers, at the visa and immigration like approved centers basically. The mode of the test is slightly different, because it has these video recordings and everything going on. So again, it is slightly different, and the overall the modules are pretty much the same. But then again, When it comes to the fifth kind of, like, as you can see, we have divided these modules or these test options in these five, these officially declared IELTS options. And you can see these, you're probably familiar with this for like any of you who has gone for the bookings yourself and you've done the booking on your own. You've probably seen these appear. You've seen, first of all, there's something called the computer delivered IELTS. There's something called the computer delivered IELTS UKVI, so the two different purposes. One, the usual, then you have the visa one, then you have the pen and paper based IELTS, and again the visa counterpart of, like, the immigration counterpart of it, the UKVI. And then you have something called IELTS Life Skills. Now, Life Skills is also part of UKVI, but it has a slightly different structure. So if we first talk about the first four, pretty much, with the standard curriculum of academic in general. So the academic curriculum, namely, in that you have the usual 4 modules. The general curriculum also has the 4 modules, but then you have this mode of operation which is slightly different, which is either computer based or manual. So when you have pen and paper based approach, you have like everything physical, especially in listening. For example, you might be listening to your audio over a loudspeaker in a room and not having that kind of headphones. So it really also differs based on the venue and the arrangements they have made. But yeah, there are definitely some differences, and namely in the time that you get in the listening. So we'll talk about the differences in the mode of test soon enough. But when it comes to the life skills, we'll just talk a bit about that. So the life skills has a different set of modules. It just has 2, listening and reading, that's it. Listening and speaking, that's it. So which is why it's a different kind of test, which just focuses on your basic proficiency for the sake of immigration or to join your family. It's more from the perspective of immigration. So as for our purposes, it's not really something we are concerned about right now, but it's definitely not, again, a very difficult one. You can definitely ace it as well if you follow our tips and tricks for speaking and listening. They're going to be the same for that because the essential skills are the same. And it has 2 levels, by the way. It has an A1 level and it has a B1 level. So these levels are according to the European framework. And it's just like, let's say you're learning about Spanish, they also have something like this A1, B1, and so on. It's similar to that. But nonetheless, we would move back to our original concern, which is the usual IELTS, the academic module specifically. Now, when we're talking about the academic module or simply the IELTS performance overall in India, so we have to take a look at the figures, right? So how are you guys performing? How have the students previously performed? What's the average? What's the mean? What's going on, right? And as we can see, this is an unfortunate scenario, we can say, because as far as I've experienced personally, all my students, they're like brilliant students. All of you guys are actually absolutely brilliant. And some of you guys are like brilliant engineers. You have such brilliant ideas. Someone is pursuing business, right? But somehow at the end of the day, as we can see, the mean score rests at around 6.5, and that's it. So we have a mean score in listening for about a 6.5, reading just a 6, and the rest of them 6 as well. Now that's unfortunate. And unfortunately this happens because we don't really place a lot of importance, or rather say any importance at all, when it comes to honing communication skills in the second language or in this foreign language, which is English, which unfortunately or fortunately, however we can call it, happens to be an essential tool for your personal growth and your professional growth. So this is a barrier we have to cross. We have to hone our skills, not just for the sake of a 7 or a 7.5. We have to ace that 8. Once you ace the 8, you know you have garnered the skills, you know that you have practiced enough that you can actually confidently speak. You can confidently write your thoughts. You don't have to depend upon a software. A software can save you in writing. It can definitely not save you when speaking much. So you have to be able to hone these skills for your own sake. So we're trying to understand what's going on here. Now, as you can see, it's a 6.5 in listening. Now, when we talk about listening in terms of scoring, listening and reading are probably the easiest sections there are. So if we just like divide it in like 2 versus 2, we say listening and reading would always be the easiest sections. Or the easier sections rather say, that would give you the advantage, the score push in order to get that overall score going. When it comes to the writing and speaking, especially writing, majority of the people have difficulty because frankly those two are comparatively more difficult than listening and reading. So when it comes to listening, why is it just a 6.5? There are various difficulties that students usually face. Now, you guys definitely face many of these difficulties, which are like common questions and common mistakes, common queries among students. We usually often hear this complaint that, oh, it's a matter of accent and when we talk about language acquisition, see, this I'm talking about a little from the linguistic perspective that when let's say there's a person who has a different mother tongue and they're going for learning the second language, they're going to learn the second language later in life. Okay, so because majority of the students whom we are dealing with, they're above 16 or above 15 minimum, up till, I don't know, like 40-ish almost. And we don't really have a cap there, right? So, but yeah, it's mostly that you guys, we can say you guys are like mature learners, we can say, or teenage learners even. But then, yeah, the point is that language learning happens to be a matter of some opportunity, some privilege, we can say, because you need some exposure, you need to learn the structure, you need to have, either you learn the structure voluntarily and then practice through curriculum in an academic approach, or else you naturally acquire the language through exposure by living somewhere, maybe in India, maybe abroad, where people around you are speaking in that tongue or speaking in standard tongue in that language. So ultimately, it's a matter of exposure to some extent. How much, how much time of the day, like how much time do you usually spend in speaking that tongue? How much time are you spending in writing in that? How much time are you spending in listening to that? You absolutely need the input, the listening, the reading. These are the inputs that you're getting in the language front. You're absorbing. Oh, I'm absorbing. Okay, yeah, this is how the sentence looks like. This is how the preposition looks like. This is where the preposition's supposed to be. This is where the adverb's supposed to be, right? And we don't really always pick it up from a grammar book. We pick it up usually by reading stuff. So you can read a novel, you can read a non-fiction book, whatever you're interested in. You can read a newspaper for all we care. You can just read anything which is worth reading and which has the English language used in a standard manner. I'm saying standard English, why? Because of course there are dialects. Just like in Hindi, for example, you have the standard Hindi, which is used for scholarly purposes or publishing. You also have Hindi, which is dialectal, which is used in regional ways, but they are not going to be accepted when it comes to academic considerations, would they? Now, which is why, just for English also, when you're watching something, when you're reading something, make sure you're reading or watching something which is more towards the standard usage of English, because that's what we're trying to learn as non-natives. We're trying to learn the standard English usage. And most importantly, Again, talking about language acquisition, students make various mistakes. When you're starting to plan on preparing for a test like IELTS, you cannot just think, okay, I can just barely scrape by and get a 6.5. I can barely scrape by and get a 7. I can give you 1,000 ways to do that. We will also give you these shortcuts. We would give you these tips and tricks that you can use to ace your IELTS in just about a day or two. But that's really not going to help you in the long run, because ultimately you're going to be going there, you're going to be staying at a place where you would not have the privilege of speaking your mother tongue. So let's just realize what we are in for, because the study abroad perspective, it's a whole plan, right? We plan for the whole thing. We have a plan for the budget. We plan for our, if someone's taking a loan, they have a whole plan set up. Okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to pay it back. They have a plan for applications, the university selection, all of that. You're planning for all of that. You're planning for your student profile to make it attractive. But then we don't really plan for the social integration or the social immersion that has to happen in order for a student to not feel left out or lonely, or to face troubles or practical issues when they are abroad. So let's say your IELTS preparation is a key to solving that for you at the later date. So again, we are talking about the score, the 6.5, the 6 in these sections. Well, I can assure you, if you are committed to watching our videos and practicing alongside in the timeline that we would provide you, and I would personally provide you with these methods, these tricks, and these tips to follow, you would absolutely gain 7 or more in just a few days. It's not going to be just a matter of 7. You can easily get an 8 if you're currently performing anywhere around 6.5. You can scale up 0.5, 1.5 easily within a few days, just by minding your mistakes. Because see, when talking about mistakes, in linguistics we have two sorts. We have broadly two sorts of mistakes when we categorize mistakes. We have proficiency errors and we have competency errors. Now, in layman's terms, let's say, proficiency error would be, or let's say performance error, let's say. We're saying competency error and performance error, let's say. So performance error is when you know that when I have a subject which is third person singular, and the verb will definitely take an S or an ES. So if it says that he goes to the church and she is visiting, or she visits so and so place and so on. So basically the subject is there, which is a third person, he, she, they, anybody else apart from I, you, we, and so, like the first and the second person. If it's a third person subject and you have a verb, it's a singular third person, you know there's going to be an S. That S is not a plural S. That S is what is showing you that the subject is actually third person singular. Now, anyhow, if you know the rule and you're still making the mistake, now this is so common. This is so common every day almost. I find my students making similar mistakes sometimes, which is, and they would say the moment they are caught, they would say, oh, it was a mistake, it's a slip, it's a silly error, and so on. But these silly errors we call performance errors. So you know the rule, but you're still making the error because of probably two reasons, and that either it's just like a lack of practice. That's usually a major concern. It's a lack of practice, or else it's just like a matter of mindfulness. So whatever it is, you absolutely need to work on these, and it is easier to work on performance errors. So if someone is making performance errors, if you are making performance error, and it's just like, just by solving that problem, you can easily scale up 0.5 or 1 point, overall 1 point, just in a matter of a day or two, just by minding your mistakes. But then there are those who have deficiency of some sort, which is like, if you have competency error or proficiency error, as we call it. So the competency error is when you do not know the rule. So it's a lack of knowledge, or it's a lack of, your system does not know that it has to use the S when there is a third person singular subject. So if the system doesn't know, it doesn't execute it. It's not the system's failure, it's just that the system was never trained, right? So if it's a competency error, then you need more support. And for those of you who want to diagnose what kind of errors that you have, we would make a video dedicated to this topic, as to how to understand competency error, as to how to understand performance error, how to segregate, and how to build the best plan to enhance your performance in just a day or two. Because I'm assuring you, if it's a performance error, you can do it in just a matter of days. That's it. Even hours, for that matter. It's because mostly it's a matter of mindfulness and a bit of practice, and you're all set. But if it's a competency error, we have to address the issue beforehand. So if we wait till the very end to address this, it won't bear results. So we'll make a video dedicated entirely to the mistakes, the common mistakes, how to address those, how to understand what kind of mistakes you're making, and I think that will be a valuable addition to your practice. So stay tuned for that as well. Now, yes, so we were talking about, again, we would go back to this whole average score thingy, right? So if we understand exactly where you're standing right now and what kind of mistakes you're making and how to effectively tackle that, we would be able to, in no time, ace the test with a great score. So it's just a matter of dedication. I'll tell you again, it's all a matter of dedication. Now, when it comes to, we'll talk a bit about the structure of the test. So as you know, the very basics, of course, you have 4 sections, or broadly speaking 4 sections. You have the listening, the very first section, you have the reading section, you have the writing, and then you have the speaking section. Of course, the first 3 sections are part of the main test that we usually book. So let's say you're booking one on the 26th of June, you're booking one on the 10th of December, you're booking the main test, right? And the speaking test date is usually provided to you, or it's given by the institute. So we don't have any control as such over the speaking test date. So if you're more inclined towards saying, oh yeah, I have school, or I have classes going on, I have college, or I have university, I would try to avoid weekdays, you might do that for the main test, but for the speaking you might just have to adjust. And it could be on the same day though, of course in a different slot, but it could be on a separate day before or after your main test. So, or the main test day basically. So basically this is what it looks like. And the time division, kindly note the time division. So in the first one we've written 30 to 40 minutes. Now why is that? So listening, the first section has some difference in the 2 modes of tests. So we have the computer delivered, as we have mentioned previously, and we have the pen and paper based, right? Now in the pen and paper based test, once you're done jotting down those details for your listening questions, you get a whopping 10 minutes to transfer your answers, right? Now that is not available in the computer-based mode. So for that you just get barely 2 minutes, and you just pretty much do it simultaneously. So that's the usual difference. So which is why we've said approximately 30-ish minutes to 40 minutes, depending on which mode of test you're going for. And of course then comes reading. It's a long section. Now see, as you can see, the whole duration of the test, the duration is something which we have to be mindful of. Why is this? Mostly students, like when they're practicing, and I keep on repeating to students all the time that practice, and like when you're doing the tests, try to sit through the test. Do not entertain any diversions. Do not be distracted, right? As teachers, we keep on saying that, right? But the thing is that often students break down their practice, which is fine for the initial phase of practice and preparation, but not so great when you're trying to really prepare finally for the whole thing, because you have to have the patience to go through these long sections without losing your focus. So when practicing, you have to try to emulate the kind of the patience that you would be requiring, the length of time, the exact length of time, by the way, that you would be getting, so that you can practice the questions correctly and focus on time management, as well as sort of prepare your mind to sit through it all, not losing the patience or not being distracted. So that's part of your success mantra as well, right? You have to stay focused throughout the test. Now, when it comes to the overall, like the structure in terms of the questions, how many questions do you have? As you can see, so it's like 40 questions in listening, 40 questions in the reading part, so 40 questions each in those, right? Quite a few questions. They might seem as quite a few questions, but frankly, they're just like very few, because when you deal with fill in the blanks, they're not really like big questions. Big questions are only like MCQs as such. Otherwise, they're just like fill in the blanks, matchings, true, false, can't tells, and that's it. So 40 questions, plenty of time, I would say. Plenty of time, especially in reading. And 40 minutes or 30 to 40 minutes, as we discussed, for listening, and a whopping 60 minutes, as we discussed, for reading. So each para, so there are 3 paragraphs basically, you would be having 20 minutes, right? Then again, for writing, you have these 2 tasks and all, and basically this is how the whole thing looks. So we'll just go a bit more in detail to talk sectionally about what we're talking about, these sections, right? Now, listening. So I would say in terms of difficulty, it is sometimes like students have this complaint, you can say sort of an objection, that listening is so difficult, we have to keep track of what they're saying, we have to keep jotting it down, we have to answer our questions. But then you guys, especially you guys are part of this whole digital generation, you guys keep on doing so many things at the same time. You do listen to stuff, you do other stuff like jotting things down, doing things, writing, speaking at the same time. So we are used to doing the very basic functions. Now, why are we usually flabbergasted when it hits us as a test? Is because we're not used to the test structure. It's an artificial structure, of course, and we're not used to this whole mindfulness of, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be minding the question, I'm supposed to be understanding what I'm supposed to look for when the audio plays, and I'm supposed to pick exactly that information and jot it down, or like type it, or simply like give it there, right? So that we can I can basically do it. So it usually is a little difficult that way, because we're not accustomed. Any test is an artificial structure, so we just have to get used to it. That's the whole deal, right? And when it comes to listening, again, we have these 4 subsections, or these 4 audios which are played, right? And the first audio always has everyday scenarios, like very general scenarios. Could be like booking a banquet hall, could be just a random conversation on going for a picnic, could be something very general, right, among usually two people. And when it comes to the second audio, it's again some sort of speech, could be presentation, could be directional, could have maps and all. So, but then mostly the first two audios are more general. You have 10 questions each from each audio. And then when it comes to the third and the fourth audios, they're a bit more specialized, we can say. So they're more academic. You can have lectures, presentations on like scientific things like maybe ocean biodiversity or something like that. You can have maybe like a conversation between two students who are trying to figure out how they would be doing a project or how they would be approaching a project and so on and so forth. So we can have like a distinction. So two of them more general, two of them more specialized, but nothing that a student is not acquainted with. So again, it's usually a matter of exposure. And the best thing is that in today's world, just a moment. Yeah, so basically it's nothing that we're not acquainted with. It's just a matter of practice. If we practice correctly and we know exactly the approach, the correct approach, which we have to use in order to practice and prepare, then there's no way things can go wrong, right? So we would now move on to understanding the reading one, the reading section. So the reading section, as we have already discussed, it has these three passages, right? And well, in terms of the manual test and the computer-based test, there's not much difference in the reading as such, only broadly speaking that you're reading on screen versus you're reading on paper. And most of you guys are so used to reading on screen all the time, right? So it's again something you have to decide for yourself. If it's something that, okay, no, I'm strictly a person who is more comfortable in reading manually and I'll be fine in that way, then okay, fine, go on with that. But again, if you're like, okay, no, I'm comfortable either way, then you should really focus on the screen-based approach, because overall digital test has some benefits actually, especially when we're going to be discussing writing. Right after this, we'll discuss that. Now, in the reading, you have these three broad passages, like quite long, right? Quite a few paragraphs. And the best thing is actually that you have paragraphs, right? So there's always there's exactly a methodical approach in which you can make this section easy peasy, right? You can get at least an 8. So what do you need to get an 8, by the way? So out of 40, let's say out of 40 questions, if you are correctly answering 39 questions or 40 questions, 40 out of 40 or 39 out of 40, you get a 9 out of 9. It's a perfect score, right? Then a near perfect score would be a 37 and a 38. So either 37 questions correct or 38 questions correct. Either way, you get an 8.5. And just below that, 35 or 36. So either 35 questions correct or 36 questions correct, you would get an 8, a great score, an 8 out of 9. So we absolutely have to target an 8.5, aim higher, always aim higher, right? So 8.5 or 8, we're absolutely trying to get you an 8, no less. Why should we settle for any less, right? So the reading is a section which can be managed methodically. Now, the usual complaint with the section is that the time is something that people have trouble with, that they sometimes say that, oh, the time has run out and so on. But that's usually because students get stuck pondering on a question. They got stuck with a question or a part of the passage, they're not being able to find the answer, or maybe they're reading it again and again. So in order to address these issues, we have to fundamentally address your reading pattern first. So in our reading audio, like reading videos, the reading section, comprehensive videos that we are going to present to you, you would find the exact ways that you're going to be addressing your reading and your comprehension. So if you know exactly how to do it and practice, of course, afterwards, it gets so much easier than practicing just blindly, right? So again, this whole thing about competency or proficiency versus performance. If you're making just slips or silly errors, that's fine. You can like take care of it, be mindful and all. But if you don't know exactly how to do it, that's a trouble, right? So we're going to be discussing all of the ways that you can enhance that skill so that it really becomes easier for you in the long run to just answer the questions, and the answers would just readily pop up to you, right? Now, moving on to the writing section. Now, the writing section is probably the most infamous one out of the whole 4 sections, the overall sections. This is because students, especially from Indian boards and students, we have seen like professionals also, like mature students, they're not accustomed to writing at all. So we have gone past the days when we used to do a lot of, like we used to have a lot of written communication in terms of emails or mostly like letters or personal communication with like congratulatory letters or wishes and so on. We don't really do that any longer, and it's all about just short texts and the whole internet lingo and all that, which has definitely jeopardized our ability to write even in our mother tongue. So nonetheless, writing is something, it's a skill. As we say, you've probably heard about penmanship. We say, he's had a lovely penmanship, and that's not just handwriting and all, that's just the overall ability, right? So, so basically, it's a matter of practice, right? It's a matter of practice that you have to practice every day. If you're not comfortable writing a lot and you're getting, so you see, for writing, this happens that in the beginning, there's usually a resistance. Most of our students, they usually point out, oh, ma'am, I'm not able to, I know exactly what to write, but I'm not able to put it on the paper. Something's going wrong, something's stopping me. It's just not happening. So it's really quite mysterious. It's just like, why is it not happening? The answer is that you are not letting it happen. That's what's happening, right? So we restrict ourselves, we limit ourselves, and we try to evade anything which is a little uncomfortable, which is a little unfamiliar, let's say, right? So if you're not used to writing, the more you would prevent yourself from engaging in writing, the more you're just pushing yourself in the puddle, and you're not going to be getting out of it unless you take the initiative. You have to write. Okay, so that's that. Now, when it comes to the writing structure, we have 2 tasks, as you know already. We have the task 1. In academic, the task 1 happens to be a sort of a summative report of a graphical information. The graphical information could be illustrated through charts, maps, diagrams, different kinds of flowchart thingy and all, anything pretty much, any graphical information, which could be comparative in nature, which could be descriptive in nature, but overall you're dealing with graphical information, right? And it's a really simple task. You have 20 minutes, and don't mind the minimum words, by the way. If they ask you, okay, these are the number of minimum words you have to write, we should not be really bothering ourselves with the minimum words, because we ought to write in a manner that completes the purpose. If you're writing to summarize the graphical information, you are supposed to do it completely. If you can do it within a para or 2 paras, if you need para division, if you don't need para division. By the way, there's no as such structure for the first writing task. We'll talk about that in detail in our later videos. It's a little flexible on that because it's sort of a summary, that's why. But when it comes to the task 2, we do have sort of a set structure that you have to have these paragraphs at least around 3 or 4. 4 would be precise, or more as in like maximum 5. So it's like a very basic structure of intro, conclusion. In between you can have 2 body paras, or if you have lots to say, then maybe 3 body paras. Now, of course, in writing there's a remarkable difference when it comes to the mode of testing. So if you're going for the pen and paper one, of course the approach is a little messy, we would say. So for all those students who are absolutely not comfortable in typing, because like we always hear that, oh ma'am, I'm not really comfortable with the typing speed I have. Frankly, it's not to do with typing speed much, because if you have a very decent speed, that works absolutely fine. You don't have to be like clicking away in a matter of seconds or something like that. Nothing like that. You have plenty of time for writing 40 minutes for the task 2, 20 minutes for the task 1. That's a whopping 1 hour, right? You have enough time if you do it in a decent pace also. But then again, it's again a matter of personal choice, and if you're like, no, I'm absolutely going to stick to the manual approach, fine, but you have to be mindful of the handwriting, and that's something we're guilty of, because many a times we just like, it doesn't have to be really beautiful or anything. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with legibility. It has to be legible. It has to be readable. Legible means it will be, anybody would be able to read it clearly, would not have to struggle to understand each of your letters, right? So it has to be really neat when you're writing manually, because that has some part to play in the examiner really becoming losing patience over reading your piece. When it comes to the task 2 specifically, because it's a little like a longer piece, by the way, there's an advantage in the computer-based mode that, see, we all write in different manners because we conceptualize in different ways. So if you're one that, okay, I'll just type the main pointers that are just coming to my mind right now, I'll just write that first, and then I'll go to the intro, I'll flesh it out, I'll go to these points, then I'll flesh it out, and then I'll go to the conclusion. So if you're someone like that who's like, who enjoys the flexibility of the typing approach, then we always, like, I personally recommend the computer-based IELTS all the time, especially because it's like, in terms of availability, it's there every day pretty much, and it's so neat. There's nothing, it's not messy work as such. It has greater flexibility. You can start from anywhere. You don't have to start from the intro. If you want to start from the body para first, and then you want to make an intro. By the way, there are multiple different approaches to writing the essay or writing the summary report, especially the essay. Even though this is sort of the idea that, oh, you start with the intro, that's not necessarily so. So we'll talk about that when we discuss the writing approaches and the writing methodologies. But then again, the writing section again is one of the key sections where people usually lose score. So this section, for this one, we have provided you with comprehensive, detailed, application-based videos where we have provided you, like, I would show you personally in real time how you're supposed to conceptualize and like transcribe that concept, pretty much like transfer that idea onto paper or type it out basically onto your screen, how you're supposed to construct that sentence, how you're supposed to construct that paragraph, right? How you're supposed to maintain that cohesion, that organic sense and the lucidity in the paragraphs, amid the paragraphs, right? One clearly flowing into the other in terms of meaning, and it's just not floating around like that all separate, right? So we would in detail talk about the writing, and I personally always emphasize a lot on the writing skills, because the writing is a section where if you're improving in real time in your sentence construction, then it will show results also in your speaking. So they're both performance oriented sections. As I was telling you, that listening and reading, if they're like inputs, speaking and writing, they're like outputs, right? So when you have the construction in your mind, and you have the correct construction, that will be reflected the moment you speak and also the moment you write. Speaking is a little more difficult when it comes to like the performance aspect, because of course you're doing it without having to think much. It is more enthusiastic. But frankly, if you just like follow our approaches, follow the exact way I'll be teaching you how to do it, how to conceptualize, how to express, you would be able to do it in no time, right? So the writing section, again, a very important section, right? We have 20 minutes and we have 40 minutes, even though not separately as such, but yeah, pretty much overall 60 minutes we have, and we have to be very mindful of the time division, right? So that we don't really mess it up. And during practice, we absolutely need to mind the time, right? Now, when it comes to speaking, the section which sort of stands alone, right? And again, a very problematic section for Indian students that we usually find. Then the speaking has generally 3 parts. So the purpose, of course, is to understand your ability or measure your ability of speech, and speech in an academic context also, because you're going for the academic module. Now, when it comes to speaking, again, we have these 3 parts, right? So what's the purpose? Like, why do they have these 3 different parts, by the way? What are they trying to get? So the first part, the conversational one, right? The conversational one, it's just like, it's a warm-up, you can say. So, of course, it's part of the whole thing, but it just like keeps you going, right? It starts we start with a little chit-chat, something about you, your favorite cuisine, your favorite dish, what you do on weekends, what you like to do, or where you like to hang out with your friends, right? Just the basic chit-chat about you, your preferences and your likes and dislikes and so on, right? But when it comes to the second and the third portions, the third part is a more reflective and a more abstract one. So you have more of these whys. So why do you think students these days, or children these days, or young adults these days don't read much? So that's something they they want to get that why out of you, right? So you have to be more expressive. You have to give reflective answers. The answers would express your reflections, your thoughts on a certain issue, and they usually tackle contemporary issues, or general issues, something to do with maybe the popularity of ebooks versus physical books. It could be something like reading patterns these days among young people. It could be something like, are the young people going for renting apartments, or are they buying, and so on, like what's the pattern and so on. So it could be like these general issues which are literally just everywhere around you. So be a bit mindful of all of these, right? Because anything and everything surrounding you could form the questions of your IELTS speaking, right? And when it comes to the second part, the cue card part, right? We have description. And even though people freak out all the time about this, frankly, there's no reason to, because it's just very basic description. So in journalism, for example, when we're penning an article, we have the basics of what, why, where, how, all the WHs, right? Here also, let's say they have asked you about to describe this famous business person that you know of, or that you've heard of. and or maybe that you aspire to, like whatever, basically, like like a celebrity of sorts or something, and you have to answer the who about it, like who the person is, of course, what kind of a business person he is, or that what, and then why he or she is like rather successful or maybe famous or whatever, and how, like what's your overall impression about them, and so on. So these are the usual cues that you have to follow, right? And if you are a person who's struggling with expressing your thoughts, like you're generally fine while talking to your friends, but when it comes to situations like these, you're getting stuck. It's like in your mind you're struggling, and you're talking to yourself in your mind saying, oh, I might mention this reason, but then I don't know if it's going to be good enough. So that's something which can be easily dealt with if you follow our advice, and if you practice well. But then again, if you're someone who's struggling with even expressing the basic thoughts, and definitely with sentence construction. Now here the funny thing is, majority of the time, especially in Indian English, or in India, in the education sphere, we have this notion that in speech grammar does not matter much, but that is a very detrimental one. Because why? First, it gives you this whole lazy view that, oh, I can get away with it, it's fine, it won't matter much. It's all about just, I should have the confidence, which is absolutely true. You should have the confidence to speak, right? And you should not be minding like, oh my God, I am saying something which is wrong, I'm not supposed to speak like this. None of that. You absolutely have to speak, right? And you have to try. But then again, understanding the basic structures, understanding grammar, understanding sentence structure, this is something we cannot forego. We absolutely need the basic vocab. We need the parts of speech. We need to understand where an adverb would be useful, where we are supposed to use that adjective. Of course, you don't have to do it theoretically, but this is something we have to learn in application. So I call it practical grammar, right? It's grammar in application. So we would also talk about various of these like foundational concepts of grammar, which we apply every day, even like subconsciously. We mostly do it subconsciously, so you might not notice, but you're already applying majority of them, right? You're applying majority of them in your own tongue. You're applying majority of them, and you're speaking in bilingual ways. But you are applying those very methods. You just need to be a little mindful, right? So we would also teach you, I would present you exactly the way that you're supposed to enhance the way you speak, the way you express yourself, the way you count your words, and the way you reflect on something of like a more abstract thought, right? So speaking is an essential skill, and through the IELTS preparation and preferably Edu-mentor support, you would be able to hone this essential skill in no time. So moving on, so in terms of the score consideration, now the score consideration, as I've talked about earlier regarding the listening and the reading. In the listening and the reading, you have this 40 question, the 40 questions, or like the overall 40 questions, and out of that, 39 to 40, you have the 9, 37, 38, 8.5, and so on and so forth. So you have, there's this conversion scale. The conversion scale is like a set scale where you can just like put in, okay, yeah, I've done these number of questions, and so accordingly, how much do I have based on this, right? So there's a set conversion question, conversion scale. But when it comes to speaking and writing do not have a set conversion scale as such, but they do have a criteria, as like a set of criteria. When it comes to the set of criteria, again, we have different criteria in speaking and different criteria in writing. For example, in writing, we have the concern for lexical usage. So what is lexicon, for example? Lexical comes from lexicon. Lexicon means, lexicon as we call it, is vocabulary, right? Words, basically the words that you're using, the choice of words. You can also probably use the term like diction. Diction is the proper word in proper place, right? So from which we have dictionary, right? So diction, or like, you know, the word choice or the lexical usage, whatever you call it, it's an integral part of your score consideration and writing, and so is the analytical part, where, you know, if your essay or your summary is logically consistent and it's flowing, it's the cohesion, the integrity, the organic structure is preserved or not, or if it's like all floating separately and the ideas are not really connecting with each other, right? So these are part of the criteria, and we will talk in detail about the writing and speaking criteria later on when we discuss the writing and speaking sections in detail in the later videos. So overall, as we have understood, it's absolutely a matter of just a few days of consistent practice. If we thoroughly go through, like, you know, these videos that we're going to present to you, and the advice that I'll be giving you, the exact strategies that I'll be teaching you, the grammatical concepts that I'll be showing you. If you go through all of these one by one, go through all the worksheets that we will be doing together, there's no way things can go wrong, and you absolutely will be having an 8. So, and also in terms of the mistakes part, I would always love hearing from you guys. So if there's any query, there's anything that you're struggling with and it's like an issue for you, you can always get in touch with me. If you just, like, you know, go on to this description box where you have the link given, where we have the whole description given onto our website, and we have the information also for the inquiry form. If you just go to the website, you have the inquiry form for the contact details, and we can get in touch with you regarding the same. We have these online batches going on, so every week I'm taking these classes, master classes included, at the batches on weekends as well as weekdays. So if you need the additional boost, the additional push, as we will say, and the guidance in the live classroom, then I'm available there. I'm just a click away, as we would say, right? But then again, if you're dedicated and if you follow my videos, if you follow the advice that I'll be giving you, if you follow the instructions and the worksheet videos and the application that I'll be showing you, there's no way that you cannot score an 8 or above and get the best scholarships or get the best opportunities and programs in your study abroad aspiration. So it's just a matter of dedication, as I would say. So stay tuned, and in order to enjoy my videos, in order to enjoy all the updates, just please like and subscribe our channel, and please hit that bell button so that you don't miss a single update, a single notification from our end, and you can be always, okay, yeah, ma'am has posted already, let me check it out, let me see, okay, it's a writing video, let me check it out, right? So I'll be posting regularly, I'll be there, I'll be online, so if you have any queries you can reach out as well. And till the next video, I wish you guys the best of learning. Please keep on watching our videos, keep on practicing, stay tuned, keep learning.